Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I know there's tensions are high right now, and I know there's a lot of emotional thinkers out there, and I know people are thinking irrationally and they're very upset. Before I even go into anything at all, let me just say, as of right now, Trump's not over as of right now. It doesn't look good, but Trump still has options. And, legal options. We're, working within the system we're talking about, which is what I suspect. That's the only thing I legitimately see Trump doing is working within the system. And we'll get into that in a second. But Trump still has options. He's going to contest things in court, and I'm sure it'll move up through the courts. And maybe there might even be a case before the Supreme Court that eventually ends up deciding the presidential election. And this could go on forever. And it's not historic. Al Gore didn't concede until December, sometime in December. So you're going to have the same kind of a thing going on. Whether it'll have the same kind of a result, who knows? But as of right now, it's totally within, Trump's right and really anyone's right to question the election and to try to see what options are available to them legally within the system. Now, obviously, without the system, that's an easy call. Outside the system, Trump could say, fuck, I don't care. Fuck your optics, I'm going in. But we know Trump's not going to do that. And we know Trump supporters aren't even really going to do that. They talk a big game, but they've been telling everyone for the last 4 years that anyone that wants to do anything in person is a Fed. So I want to talk about, in particular, ever since the what's been going on now has started to filter through and kind of settle in to a lot of people's minds here. I get a lot of angry people. Oh, you're blackpilling. You're blackpilling. Why are you blackpilling? You're the reason. You're the reason why. This is why it's happening. And I just want to. Look. I've been listening to this bullshit for years now. And I need to explain a couple of things, okay? The people telling you, oh, don't blackpill, blah, 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 blah. They're just white pill salesmen. They're white pill drug dealers. And what their white pills are is it's a fantasy. They're selling a fantasy. They're selling the fantasy of the God Emperor, Santa Claus. The reason that these people are getting mad at me, it's not because they think what I say could actually hurt Trump. Because their view of Trump, like one person in particular, and I'm not going to name names, but one person in particular, and there's a lot of people that kind of fit this, but this guy in particular, it's easy to break down. He comes from money, comes from a very wealthy family. So he hasn't really lived in the real world in the same way that you and I have. In fact, I literally do not trust people who come from money because of that's a big factor, but that would be like the main reason. When you come from money, your reality is not this. You don't have the same experience that the majority of the people on earth do. When you come from like real money, okay, your perception of reality is broken. And look, mine would be too. So there's not like anything wrong with you. It's just that's where you come from. Now, the other thing with this person, and again, I'm not picking on this person. There's lots of people like this, is in addition to coming from money and not really experiencing the real world, this person, a lot of their way they've experienced the world is through fiction. For this person, it's the fantasy genre. But, most people, I would say that applies to. A lot of people, and I've done entire videos on this, more and more we're seeing people don't actually go out into the world and experience it. Everything that they know about the world, they're getting from movies, or they're getting from books, or they're getting from comic books, or they're getting from some other form of fiction, but they're not actually leaving their pods. And especially now with COVID and everything else, people aren't leaving their pods. They're experiencing the world through fiction. And so when they look at people like Trump or like really anybody, but when they see anything in their life, what they have to compare it to is fiction. And so when you see someone like Trump who appears to be larger in life, and he's even been in movies and television shows, and he's almost a fictional character in a lot of ways, they project fictional attributes onto this person. And these people treat people like Trump like a fictional hero. Like a fictional character in a movie or in a book. It's not real life. People, and look, I've done it too. It's not like, oh, I'm better than everybody because I get it and you don't. That's the reality. Like Americans, or I would say this applies to most of the West, more and more and more, our life is fiction. And so what a lot of people start doing is they start attributing all these fictional characteristics and projecting them, onto Trump. They start acting like Trump is like a movie character. He's like this, he's the flawed hero. He could have stayed, at his mansion and just lived a quiet life. Like they buy the narrative. They buy the propaganda. The whole story of Trump, like the mythos of Trump becomes their reality. And so when things happen, they try to fit it within that mythos. They try to okay, well, Trump's not arresting Hillary. Therefore, there must be this big secret plan. There must be like this underground, patriot movement within the deep state that is, talking to us through secret. And they don't see how fucking crazy that sounds. Because in a fictional world, that would make sense. In a comic book, that would sound totally normal. It'd be interesting. It'd be cool. Life isn't that interesting and it's not that cool. And now we get to the weird part of this, the real weird part of this, right? Because in one way they do believe it, right? Like they really believe this fantasy. They come up with this fantastical version of Trump. They put all their hope and dreams. And by the way, increasingly so now, because a lot of these people don't have religion, right? They don't. And so Trump becomes a de facto religious figure in their lives. He becomes, and a lot of these people don't have fathers either. So Trump becomes a de facto father figure too. So you have all these people who literally call Trump a God emperor. They don't mince words. They call him a God emperor, unironically, right? So if you're a God emperor, you really can't do any wrong, right? And these people will say that. Anytime Trump says something crazy sounding or stupid sounding, they'll say, "Oh, wait till wait for the 4D chess. You'll eventually figure it out." And eventually, someone comes up with some weird fictional narrative that makes that okay, right? And that explains it away. They have enough time to spin it. When if you just took it at face value, like you should, it is what it sounds like. Trump's saying what he means. He just said something fucking stupid. It wasn't some big master plan. So anyway, the crazy thing is, these people who are promoting this idea of the God Emperor, some of whom, not all, some of whom really believe it, get mad at me. Or the people that listen to them get mad at me. Because like I said, these guys are like drug dealers. These are white pill drug dealers. Okay? And they're selling the white pills. The white pills aren't free. That's the thing about white pills. Black pills are free. The white pills are not free. And so people, because it makes you feel good, people are paying. They're paying because as soon as it starts to wear off, oh God, I need another white pill. They start having withdrawals, and they gotta send more super chats or whatever it is to get more white pills. Anyway, these people that are promoting this godlike idea of Trump, they can't possibly think that someone like me would actually pose a threat to Trump and his godlike status. How is that even possible? Someone like me. Now look, I'm not super small potatoes, but I'm pretty fucking small potatoes. Okay? I'm not exactly a household name. Okay? I've got a decent amount of subscribers. I get it. I have some influence, but there's no way I'm a threat to Trump's power, especially if he's a God emperor. Right? That doesn't make sense. If you really thought that he was a God emperor, why would you be worried about little old Devin Stack? Or anybody for that matter? All these other people. I mean, if Trump is able to, he's taking on the deep state and he's taking on big media and he's taking on, the pedos and all this stuff, what does it matter what I say? I mean, I'm like a mosquito, right? But that's not what it is. That's not what it is. They know I don't. Deep down, they know I don't pose a threat to God Emperor Trump. No. I pose a threat to their fantasy. They know it's not real. Just like the kid that's telling other kids at school that Santa Claus isn't real, he's not murdering someone that lives on the North Pole named Santa, right? That kid that's telling people that Santa Claus isn't real is just destroying the fantasy that these kids have of someone who lives on the North Pole. But that person doesn't exist just like the God Emperor Trump doesn't exist. He's Trump. And so many people have blown him into like this big fucking crazy, larger than life, superhuman comic book hero. And that's what I'm destroying when I tell people that it's not real. I'm destroying the fantasy. I'm bringing people to reality. That's my job. And reality isn't as fun as fantasy. It's not as fun as fiction. But this entire channel is about unraveling fiction and getting people to be in reality. A lot of people have good imaginations. Nothing wrong with that. I've got a good imagination, I'd like to think. But you can't let your imagination be in control of your perception of reality. And these people are getting angry with me. Some because they're the users of the white pills, right? They're addicted to the white pills. They're afraid that their supply is going to dry up. And the people selling the white pills, they're like the cartels going around chopping people's heads off in Mexico. You can't, don't interfere with the supply of my white pills. That's going to affect my bottom line. My business relies on people believing in Santa Claus. And if you start telling the kids that Santa Claus isn't real, that's going to affect my bottom line. Fuck you. That's what it is. Me telling people the truth about what's going on poses only a threat to fiction. That's it. That's it. Scientology is exactly the same way. Scientology requires a lot of money from people, and in return, they sell you a fantasy. They sell you a LARP. And the LARP gets crazier and crazier the more invested you get. They don't come right out the gate telling you about Xenu, the evil alien emperor that, and all that nonsense. And in fact, they're very protective of that storyline because they know if you're not properly invested and you hear this fiction, you're going to recognize it for what it is. You're going to be like, oh, wow, that's obviously fake. That's obviously fiction. This personality test thing that you were doing where I hold on to these, metal rods and you look at the E-meter and all that. That seemed a little bit weird, but now I'm definitely in crazy town. I got to get out of here. No. So what they have to do is they protect it. They make sure that you're properly invested so that by the time they reveal to you the story about Xenu, the crazy alien, you have put so much money and so much time into Scientology that you have to believe it. You have to believe it. And that's the same thing with Trump. The fiction around Trump has increased in tandem with the amount of time, the amount of money, the amount of sacrifice his supporters have put into it. The more you sacrifice, the more that relationships you give up on, the more money that you lose out on because you get, you get fired from your job, you get in fights with your family members. The more you sacrifice, the more you tell people, no, Trump can make it. And you're really putting a lot of shit on the line. You're really putting a lot at risk. The more you're willing to believe about this guy, more fiction you're willing to buy into because you have to. And it gets to a point eventually with a lot of Trump supporters where they're believing QAnon. They're believing this crazy fantasy version where every negative thing Trump does is 4D chess. It's part of some elaborate plan to really do what you want, even though on its face it seems like it's not like he's doing what you thought he would do. It's just like this crazy thing. You see what I'm saying? And then every time you buy into one of these crazy lies, every time you read more of this fiction, buy into it, you have to move on to the next level. You're going to be more and more willing to buy into more and more crazy because you've already bought into all this other crazy. And every time you accept some of the previous lies, it's going to be more embarrassing for you to admit that you were wrong, right? So you're stuck. You have to, okay, well, if I admit that this is bullshit, that means all this other shit's bullshit, and then I look like an idiot. So instead of that, I would rather just buy into this new bullshit, which is you just dig yourself deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually you're Tom Cruise on a weird boat in the middle of the ocean with some Scientologists telling you about Xenu the alien. And you're like, oh, okay, that sounds legit to me. That's how it works. You start talking about, and I don't know that they can do it now because it's all out in the open now, but if you start talking about the upper levels of what's going on in the Scientologist, the Church of Scientology, like what they actually believe, they'd come after you with copyright infringement lawsuits. In fact, the South Park episode they did revealing the story, in fact, this was probably one of the, if not the biggest reveal of what Scientologists actually believe. So if you ever want to, find out, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I think a lot of people have seen this episode and know what I'm talking about. But if you're just like, I don't know what you're talking about, the Xenu thing, check out that episode of South Park. At the end of that episode, if you look at the credits, it's all Jane and John Doe's. They don't put their real names because there was a good chance they were going to get sued because they can't let that get out. So when you see people, and maybe some of the people listening here, you're one of these people. You see people getting angry with me, telling me not to blackpill. Oh, don't avoid all blackpillers. Can you imagine me saying that? Telling you to avoid white pillars? No, I'm not. I'm not telling you not to listen to them. I'm telling you that they're lying, and that which is totally different. But if you have people telling you, "Oh no, don't even go to their channels," don't even, that's because they're afraid. They're not afraid of what I'm going to do to Trump. They're afraid of what I'm going to do to the fiction. They're afraid that I'm going to unravel the fiction. And a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them are saying this because it's going to affect their bottom line. They're afraid if I tell you about Xenu, the alien, you're not going to want to pay for their personality tests anymore. It's what this is. Trump is a cult of personality. That's what it is. It's a cult of personality. Okay? That's what it is. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think to be a successful politician, you kind of have to have that. And there's always going to be some followers, right, that are they're followers, right? They're just, Trump could tell them anything and they'd go along with it. And those people I'm never going to be able to get through to. So, I mean, in effect, they shouldn't be mad at me, right? I'm never going to get through to them. So don't worry. I'm never going to ruin your fantasy. You're in that fantasy for good. You're never getting out of it. You've signed on for a lifetime subscription to that fantasy. Nothing I say, literally nothing, will ever wake you up from that dream. So enjoy your slumber. Enjoy the show. Trust the plan. You know, it's just funny because this whole time I've been saying, look, if you trust the plan and you just sit back and you never, first of all, you don't pressure Trump when he does stuff wrong. He's never going to do anything right because why would he? Everyone's thinking like he's doing 4D chess. He could do whatever he wants and he's never going to pay a political price from his base. His base is never going to protest at his rallies or, you know, they're never going to boo him. You know, he's never going to get any negative feedback. So why would he ever change his behavior? So that was the biggest thing I was talking about, especially early on. I said that I think on election day when Trump got elected was like, okay, guys, I think the first thing I said was, all right, guys, we got this. We got him elected, but this doesn't stop now. Now we have to hold Trump's feet to the fire and make sure he does all this stuff he said he was going to do. That's the first thing while people were still celebrating. That's the first thing I said. But it went right out the window with most people. Everything was 4D chess and trust the plan. And that, like I said, this is that which is bad for Trump and it's bad for us. Because if Trump isn't getting any negative pushback, any negative feedback ever, and let's just say because look, I don't know. I really, to this day, I still don't know if Trump is just some like dumb boomer that's doing whatever his advisors are saying, and he just happens to have the personality necessary to get elected. Well, I mean, maybe not this time, but you know what I mean? Like he just happens to be the front man. I don't know if that's the case or if he's some kind of master. I don't know. Hard to tell. Really is. Hard to tell. But either way, in either scenario, if he's never getting any pushback, he's never getting any feedback, if we're never shutting down the switchboard over at the White House, calling in and complaining about something, what's the, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, who cares? He's going to keep just doing whatever he wants or whatever his donors want or whoever's really pulling the strings. It doesn't matter. They're just going to keep going the same direction without course correcting because why would they? And then the other end of that, you're going to have complacency. You're going to have people that are just, not only are they not giving negative feedback when Trump's doing something wrong, but they're never being proactive. You know, they're never going to rallies. That, you know, it's all taken care of. Trump's got some plan that we're trusting. Everything's good. I don't have to go volunteer somewhere to go be a poll worker, to be a poll watcher. I don't have, or to, you know, go canvassing or work the phone banks. And look, I know there's people that did that. There's probably a few people that did stuff like that or whatever. But I'm just saying, there's no sense of urgency, right? Like if it's all some plan, it's all been predetermined, which is what that implies. Like it's everything. It's already, you know, we've got this in the bag, you know, Patriots in charge, that sort of a thing. Where's the urgency, right? Like when you look at the left and you see them radicalized and losing their shit, that's because they do not feel like they're coming from a position of power. They feel like, oh shit, you know, Hitler's in charge and we got to stop him, blah, blah, blah. They're energized. They have that sense of urgency. We don't have that. on the right. We don't, and that's part of why. Part of why is everyone's so hopped up on fucking white pills. They think, oh, it's all good. We got this in the bag. Here's another super chat. Feels good, man. So anyway, I don't know where things are going to go. I just wanted to say that because, and I, by the way, that it was totally predictable that this was going to happen before the election results even started coming in. I think one of the first tweets I put out was like, look, if Trump loses, more people are going to blame me than blame Trump. And that's exactly what's been happening. Okay. And look, we don't even know if he's really lost. Like I said, it doesn't look good. And I don't mean that it doesn't look good in terms of if we got rid of all fraud. Like if I could wave a magic wand and all voter fraud magically disappeared and the only votes that count are like legitimate votes, I suspect Trump would win if I had that ability, right? So I'm not saying that he didn't win. I suspect there's a really good chance he did. But it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter because Trump disbanded his voter fraud commission 2 years before the real, I think they met like twice. Why? Why do that? Why do that? Oh, was that 4D chess? Was that part of the plan? And then you have the swamp, all these people that you're not locking up. One of them is the one that just, according to the media today, I mean, again, we don't know how this is going to shake out, just unseated you as president. Biden should have been investigated, indicted, and imprisoned, if not worse, because I suspect there's some treason wrapped up in all that. You're going to drain the swamp, right? See what I'm saying? But because everyone thought there was some kind of 4D chess thing going on, there was no political pressure. Everyone was trusting plan. Oh, don't worry, Trump, there's all these sealed indictments. Just you wait till the hammer comes down. Enjoy the show. The storm is coming. And the fucked up thing is there's still some delusional people. They think this is the storm. It's finally here. It's here, guys. Yeah, enjoy this. Get your popcorn. This is the part, because again, they're looking at this like it's fiction. This is the part where in the story, in the movie, where everything looks like really low for the hero. This is the part of the story where the hero is just about to make a comeback and win it. And look, that's not outside of the realm of possibilities. But you see, you're still trusting the plan. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Now, what I think will happen, and maybe this will end up being wrong, I don't know. So this is, like I said, this isn't like a black pill or a white pill. This is just, people keep asking me, so I'm just going to tell you, like, what I suspect will happen is that Trump will continue to, refuse to concede, which is good, by the way. What is important right now is that Trump doesn't concede for as long as humanly possible or forever. I mean, that'd be my wet dream is that Trump literally has to be physically removed from office. Here's what you got to understand about America. There is no political solution. Imagine that you have a building that's been collapsing for about a century, and every time you fix it with like duct tape and glue, and you just paint over the cracks in the walls. At a certain point, when the building is mostly duct tape, it has to come down. There's no fixing it. And that's America right now. There's no fixing it. Now, it might not collapse tomorrow. Might not collapse. I don't even know. Who knows? No one knows. But you can't fix it without it coming down first. That's just the reality, guys. There is no long-term strategy that fixes the building without the building having to first be demolished. It's over. It's dunsies. If you don't understand that yet, if you're still clinging to but then maybe in 2024, we can elect Trump Jr. and then eventually we can elect Tucker. I mean, you're living in you're just taking more fucking white pills. You're just trying to you're just a hopium addict trying to stay in the dream. No, that shit's over. It's done. So what I try to think about when I think about the future and what's best for us is I try to think of ways that this building can collapse without it landing on all of us and killing us all. Okay. Because when a building this big collapses, there's inevitably casualties. And so you don't want it to just get knocked down willy-nilly. And so when I look at this structure that's kind of leaning over and there's rumbling sounds and you're like, I don't know if I should be in this building right now. This doesn't seem very safe. You want to know kind of where, at least what direction is this going to fall in and stuff. And I'm telling you, we're in a really good spot for that controlled demolition right now. I think what would be ultimately the best for us is that Trump refuses to leave office. And the longer that Trump refuses to leave office, the more people are going to start to see the cracks in the walls. They're going to start to see that they've just been painted over. They're going to start to see the big rolls of duct tape on load-bearing beams. They're going to start to see, oh, shit, this building, it's got to come down. We can't fix that. That's good for us. No matter who gets sworn in on January 20th, the longer this drags out, the better. The less faith people have in the system, the better, because the system cannot be fixed. It can't be fixed, guys. It can't be fixed. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and I understand not wanting to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. It took me a long time of trying to think of ways to fix the system to come to the conclusion that it can't be fixed. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to get in a position where Trump is literally being dragged out of the White House. I don't think Trump is going to try to initiate a civil war. I think Trump will go with whatever the court says. Reluctantly, maybe kicking and screaming a little bit, but, ultimately, if he challenges the election results in court, and the court finds in favor of Biden, I just don't see him trying to start a civil war. Trump has come on, you guys at this point have to see that Trump has been more talk than action on most things. Come on, be honest with yourself. You know this. So when it comes right down to it, and plus, like I mentioned this on Twitter too, under a Biden administration, these people, you've seen them on Twitter, these people, they want to prosecute. You think it was bad when they were trying to impeach him and doing all this Russian collusion stuff like that? If you had a Biden presidency, a Biden DOJ, a Biden FBI going after the Trump dynasty with a vengeance, yeah, okay. Well, if you're Trump, you might be thinking about that. And you might make some deals in the back room. Like, look, we'll both play it cool. We'll say it's for unity. And, that way we preserve this hierarchy that we both live in very comfortably. And, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We already talked about a million times how the ruling class doesn't go after its own. Trump, this might be why Trump didn't go after Biden. This might be why Trump didn't go after Hillary and all these people. It's just, they're not going to do it in the same way that maybe Biden's not going to go after Trump when everything's said and done. But I suspect that if the court rules in favor of Biden, Trump's just that's it. He'll step down. He might, like I said, he might make some noise. He might start, people have talked about, he might start like a media company. That's possible. Whatever, right? But no more President Trump. No civil war. Which doesn't come without its positives. Okay? And there's been a lot of people using a lot of hyperbole to try to scare people into thinking that if they didn't vote for Trump, that, they'd be put in FEMA camps and all this other stuff. And I'll tell you what, all those people are liars. They're liars. They're usually the white pill drug dealers too, but they're liars. If they're telling you that, if a Biden presidency means that the ATF's going to kick down my door and they're going to shoot me in the fucking head, and then they don't leave America when Biden becomes president, they were full of shit. They were lying to you. They were trying to keep you in the fantasy. Now, I'm not saying that I'd be super stoked about a Biden presidency. And I'm also not one of these people even that's as optimistic. Like, there's some people that think that the reason why the left has been going so crazy with the censorship and all this other stuff is because it's in reaction to Trump. And they didn't do this under Obama because they felt safe. And if they have Biden, they're not going to keep going at it. I'm not so confident of that. I think that they've already crossed the line of censorship, and now they feel emboldened and they'll keep going with that. So I do not believe that is the case. Now, I will say, and this is as one of the things I noticed in the Simpsons thing that I am still working on. It's like, at least I'm getting to where now I'm going to have to start watching the ones they just made, where they addressed the election, supposedly. I don't know. I haven't seen that one yet. But one of the things I noticed in The Simpsons was when there was a Republican, this show's gone on for like 30 something years. I've seen so many fucking episodes, but the Simpsons have been going on for so long that you can see like how political they are during Republican administrations and how political they are during Democrat administrations. And there is a very noticeable difference when you've got a Republican that Hollywood doesn't like in the White House, You get a lot of the very lefty, anti-Republican messages in a lot of episodes. And then the second a Democrat's elected, all that kind of goes out the window, and it kind of goes, it's still subversive and whatever, but it's not nearly as, or it really, there's entire seasons where it's not political at all because they're not energized. They're the ones trusting the plan, if you will. So the benefit, I guess, or the silver lining, I guess, of a Biden presidency is that you would have that trusting the plan feeling on the left. Although, like I said, I think the censorship would still increase. I think that we'd have a lot of problems still. I don't think that by any means they would just totally relax, but they might relax in some ways. Another thing, an important thing, you got to think about, everyone listening who's to the right of Trump, which, I mean, look, if you're honest with yourself, that's pretty much everybody. Everyone that's in the audience that's to the right of Trump, one of the obstacles that we have had when trying to push our ideas with Trump as the patriarch, if you will, of the right wing, is that people don't like it if it goes against what Trump is saying, because Trump is the captain of the ship. And so if you start talking about things that are to the right of Trump, it starts sounding like you're organizing a mutiny. And people get all very sensitive about that. And they get very upset because, well, if Trump likes Israel, then maybe I should like Israel too. You know, or if Trump says this about black unemployment, then maybe I should like that too. Well, if Trump is pushing the platinum plan, then maybe that's something that I should get behind because Trump's pushing it. You see, so if I start talking bad, in fact, that would be, I mean, everyone's experienced this. Like if you start talking bad before the election, especially if you would say something that was counter to what Trump would say, the first thing out of the mouths of a lot of these people would be like, oh, what, you want Biden? Oh, you're going to vote for Biden? I mean, these light switch brains, that's the way that they think. So it makes it difficult when you're to the right of Trump to start promoting right-wing ideas because it's counter to what Trump, as the de facto patriarch of the right, is saying, right? So if you don't have that anymore, because in that way, Trump is an obstacle. Trump did a lot of good things, but in that way, Trump is an obstacle to getting people to the right because he's like the dam holding the water back. You know, he's the one that's saying, oh, this is the line. He's the one that defines, I guess, the Overton window in a lot of ways, right? And look, he wasn't right wing at all. He wasn't right wing at all. He really wasn't. So if we're not having to compete with whatever is coming out of TPUSA, you know, if there's no longer this ordained entity, if there's no longer this official mainstream, you know, MAGA narrative that you have to compete with, you know, that is holding people back, that's a positive. That's a good thing because now your right-wing ideas, they don't look like that they're opposing Trump. They look like they're opposing Biden or Harris or whoever ends up, you know, being president at that point. So anyway, there's a lot more going on in my head about, you know, we still have like the Great Reset nonsense, the COVID stuff. I mean, there's just so many things happening. It's really kind of hard to game it all out and try to figure out where all the chips are going to land. We're in the fog of war right now. Okay. If Trump decides to surprise me and probably the world really, and he has enough loyalists within his administration and the military and other places that I just don't suspect that he does. But if somehow he does and he says, this is it. We're done listening to you guys. We're done with this fraud. We're done with this corruption. I should have locked you guys up. And now, this is it. We're going to war, and legit decides to bring it to the next level with Q boomers in the backs of pickup trucks with their AR-15s, driving to Washington or I don't know, wherever the front line would end up being, which is like a whole nother problem, right? But hey, look, I would support him 1,000% at that point. Because would it be ideal? No. Do I agree with Trump on everything? No. In fact, there's a lot that I think is bad. But like I said, the building has to come down. At that point, you kind of just got to go with it, right? You got to commit. And I think at least my feeling right now is, and again, this is all fantasy land. I don't think any of this would actually happen. But in some LARPy scenario like that, if you want a white pill, look, I'd be down like fucking Chinatown in that scenario. I don't see it happening. And by the way, when I say that I don't think Trump is going to declare civil war and all that other stuff, I'm not saying that there won't be civil war, okay? What I'm saying is Trump's not going to, it's not like a movie, okay? Like I said on Twitter, Trump's not going to nominate Kyle Rittenhouse as Secretary of Defense and just start going ham on the commies and the storm's going to come and they're going to, all the indictments will be on, you know what I mean? Like, that's not happening. That's not happening. Other things could happen. Things are very fluid right now. All we can hope for right now is that Trump drags this out as long as possible. The tensions go higher and higher and higher. Chaos is good because chaos is transitional. The ruling class knows this too. And the ruling class always, or at least very often, uses chaos to transition into their plans too. And I'm well aware of that. I'm not naive. But two can play at that game. When you have a chaotic situation, they can make predictions and they certainly have a track record of steering the ship in the direction they want it to go. But the ocean's very unpredictable. And that's the best we can hope for, is unpredictability. Because this building has to come down. It has to come down. For Blackpilled, I'm Devin Stack.